Hi, Fiber friends. Welcome to the Fiber Artist Podcast today. Thanks for tuning in. Head over to neuromastudio.com to get 15% off your next purchase using the code PODFRIEND. We have a huge selection of premium cotton rope and string, recycled cotton rope and string, merino wool roving, art yarn, recycled silks and ribbons, and tons of other scrumptious fibers for weaving and macrame. Again, the code is PODFRIEND for 15% off at neuromastudio.com. If you're enjoying these episodes, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Like each episode and leave us a comment. Another thing you can do to help out the pod is to tell all your creative friends about it. It really helps to spread the word. And I am very excited to introduce today's guest. We have Demi Mixon on the podcast. Demi is a very talented fiber artist based in Houston, Texas. She creates incredible hand-dyed macrame and mixed media works. We chat about her fiber journey and a little about our Enneagram numbers. Demi shares her experience of being laid off from her corporate job at the start of the pandemic, the sheer anxiety and panic that ensued, and how that experience has reshaped how she approaches her now full-time creative work. You can find Demi online at demi.design and on Instagram at demi.macrame.designs. Okay, enough from me. Here is Demi.
I'm Demi Mixon. I of Demi Macrame and Designs, and I am now kind of branching into multimedia fiber art. And I'm mostly found on Instagram, but I also have a website at demi.design. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. And it's pronounced Demi?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I have been butchering people's names left and right, like the last 3 podcasts. I like say hello and I completely say it wrong. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I really thought I had it right. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. You and I have been Instagram friends for a really long time. So I'm excited to get to talk to you. I've just been so incredibly wowed by your work in the last, I guess it's a year and a half, but you haven't actually been practicing fiber for a crazy long time, right? Tell everybody, how you got started and yeah.
Okay. The background. So I've always been like a creative person. I kind of just started thinking about this recently. Many members of my family also have their own little creative streaks. Mm-hmm. And I think growing up, I was exposed to a lot of learning how to sew from my grandma and, always drawing, always wanting to paint or do something like that. So I kind of always had that bug to use my hands and make something. Mm-hmm. Which I think has grown into a little bit of an ADD thing when you're sitting down and you're like, okay, I need to do something. But I gravitated to fiber in grad school, actually. I'm also a geologist. So I have my bachelor's and master's in geology. And I did my master's degree in Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And when I was there, I kind of taught myself how to knit when it was cold winters outside in your cabin and you're just like, I can't really do anything right now. So I need to learn, I need something to do.
You went from, where did you do your undergrad?
Texas A&M.
Okay. So you went from tropical Texas to Alaska for how long?
So I did that for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
And wow. I was in Fairbanks. So that's dead center interior Alaska. So it gets some of the coldest temperatures.
Wow.
The coldest I got when I was up there was -48 my first year.
How do you even, I have no concept of what that's like.
It's kind of funny because I went from an extreme heat in Texas to an extreme cold. Mm-hmm. So it's all just about, for there, it's just about dressing, right? And, it's in Texas when it's 105 degrees outside, it's not like you're spending your time outdoors.
Of course.
It's just the same there when it's -20 or something. You're not really walking around outside too much. So then you acclimate.
Right.
Yeah. So, but when I was there is when I learned how to do knitting, and I really fell in love with that. And I started knitting all sorts of things, mostly I have maybe 10 sweaters that are started that still aren't really finished. But lots of hats and scarves, and I gave gifts away a lot. And yeah, so that's kind of what I did for my 3 years when I was up there.
Nice.
And then when I moved back down to Texas, I moved back to Houston. That's where I'm from. And I wanted to continue doing something, but I kind of was ready for a change. And it's also pretty warm here. So when you're knitting like with wool and all this really chunky fibers, it gets kind of hot.
Right.
So at that point is when I was looking on Instagram for like things to do, and I just started seeing little macrame things pop up. And this was 2016, I think. Yeah, 2016, around that time. And I think, and some of the first cord I ordered was on Amazon, and it was from you. It was like just like a raw natural cord on Amazon.
Yeah. I used to sell on Amazon. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did like a DIY kit, and I was like hooked. I mean, because it's just, you learn 3 basic knots, and you just, with a little creativity and ingenuity, you can just kind of do whatever.
Totally. That's the beauty of macrame, I think, is like really those 3 knots will take you, I mean, the sky's the limit after that, truly. Yeah. And you can embellish with other ones, but those 3 it's like all you need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I learned pretty quickly, and then I was engaged at the time, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be our wedding. Like, I'm going to have shit everywhere.
Nice.
So I made like 16 like 4-foot wall hangings.
Oh my God, really? Have you posted all those? I must have not
a while back. They're like way back there, but yeah, I have some. We had this really nice venue that had this kind of metal square frame that hung above where the main tables were. Mm-hmm. So I suspended the wall hangings from that frame.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, and it was kind of like, yeah, it was great. I loved it. But after that, it just kind of took off, and eventually I got into hand dyeing, and yeah, just really dedicated a lot of time to it. At the time, I was working for oil gas industry here in Houston as a geologist, and how did that go? I was working, and I was also doing like markets. I started making so much that I was like, I got to go to markets and like sell some of this stuff so I can actually kind of validate my craft expenses a little bit. And those were like the fun little experimental pieces and, planters and things like that. And eventually I just wanted to start making bigger and bigger things. I spoke with you like the year before I started doing my big stuff and asked for like that big chunky cord, of which I am still totally in love with.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people love it. So I have to say thank you for requesting it, because at first I was like 25 millimeters, the largest we can go, because you were like, how thick can we go? And I mean, it's so cool to work with. So yeah, I'm really happy that that's
been so cool to see, like, oh, this is just like, I asked her if she could get it made, and she made it, and now so many people are just like using it in their work.
Yeah, I know, and in so like many different ways. You totally are. I should call it the Demi 25.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Yeah, but I got that. You had that cord manufactured, and then I did my first like almost 5-foot circular piece with that, and then after that, I was like, okay, I have to like expand the way I'm working. I have to really push my boundaries here. And then when COVID hit, oil tanked, my company leaned out, and I was let go. So once I was let go,
that's what happened. Okay.
Yeah. So I was let go in 2020, like March or something. And after that, I was kind of like, I don't know, you get let go from a job, and it's a big hit to your ego, and you're like, is this my fault?
Especially really because oil and gas feels like a recession-proof industry.
No.
But yeah, like I definitely didn't think rope would do so well in the pandemic. I mean, everything was opposite what it was supposed to be. It's so weird.
Because so many people were at home just needing something to do and like a craft, which is great.
I know. So God, I never would have thought oil and gas would have to start thinning out. I'm used to it here in Houston. I mean, I know so many people in the industry, and it's a very cyclical industry. Lots of ups and lots of downs. The highs are really great and the lows suck. So it's hard to be a part of if you don't want to kind of go through the roller coaster. And, when I was let go, I kind of really had this existential kind of crisis for sure. Totally.
And just decided I wasn't ready to go back to try to do that. And I also kind of think the corporate environment that I was in wasn't really something that was for me. So I really wanted to take the time and try and devote everything I could to like really pursuing an art practice and kind of building a career around that.
Right.
So that's what I've been doing since then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually want to ask you a lot about your geology background.
Sure.
It sounds counter to the fiber stuff, but I think that it was a part of your life for so long that it's definitely still there. And I think it's planted seeds for what you're working on now. I'm stupid when it comes to earth science. So, I mean, I know the basics, like what I learned in 4th and 5th grade or whatever. But so as a geologist, like I would love to hear more about your time in Alaska and like what you were doing there, what you were studying.
Yeah.
I know some of it you had mentioned when we were talking before, what you had sent me sort of informed some of your work now. So yeah, I would just love to hear about that experience and kind of like weave the thread to how it kind of plays into your work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've always loved like anything to do with earth sciences. I was always somebody who, well, I guess, I mean, when I was a kid, we went camping a lot and I really enjoyed that. And I always wanted to do something. I shouldn't say always because that's not accurate at all. I was a kid that didn't think about the future until everybody else started thinking about the future. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do?
Really? Wait. Actually, so as a kid, I'm wondering, were you like a very studious kid? Were you active in sports and, you know?
Yeah, as a kid, I was not a studious kid. I did not maintain very good grades or anything like that.
See, that's shocking to me. You basically became a scientist. And you didn't have good grades as a kid, which gives me hope for my kids.
I changed a lot. Yeah. In high school, especially, like, I don't remember classes and like things you learn in high school. I remember drill team. I was on my high school dance team. So I danced like throughout my whole youth. And when I was a kid, you know, I did the karate, ice skating, gymnastics. You know, my mom put me in like at least a little bit of everything to see what I liked. Dancing was always like a constant thing I enjoyed. And I dedicated most of my time and energy to that in high school. That's where I found my best friends that I'm still best friends with to this day. And even then I was like an officer my senior year, which meant that I was in charge of like a team of, you know, members and was supposed to be on time and diligent and all this stuff. I was always late. I was always getting demerits for being late, always procrastinated. That has not changed. That is something I've tried to change, but does not change. But yeah, so I wasn't super studious and I didn't really think about college literally until we sat down in high school in an auditorium with my friends and they started talking about like applications for college. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a thing people do.
Oh, wow.
That we just didn't really talk about in my household. My parents got divorced when I was 11. And then everything was just kind of like, they were always just working to like make ends meet and always very busy. So I think she always assumed that I would go to college. We just never really had the conversation.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
So when it was brought up, I just kind of was like, okay, well, I'll apply where my friends go. And that's pretty much what happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I say that's crazy because that's so opposite my household. I literally like I think when I was probably by the time I was 7, I understood that my whole job was then to get into a good college and get straight A's. And I mean, it was totally like typical Asian household in that way. But I can't imagine just like enjoying my childhood without thinking about what college I was going to get into.
I mean, I will say, I wish
kind
I
of
had
nice.
put a little more thought into it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I didn't like flunk out of things. I just, you know, I wasn't like had to get A's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think my parents were happy if we just made it day to day with the situation that we were in.
Right.
So
do you have siblings?
I have a sister.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a sister and a brother.
Okay. And so did you have to go between your parents' houses after they got divorced?
Yeah, they did the whole like every Wednesday we'd be with my dad and then every other weekend with my dad.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean hectic. I'm sure it was like there's a lot of moving.
You know,
and
it was what it was, and I ended up making such valuable connections anyways, regardless of grades or anything. I mean, my friends really shaped, I think, the person that I became.
Yeah.
because they had those kind of traditional households where like they were all in the National Honor Society and like, doing that stuff. So, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to not do homework tonight.
Well, they say peers are like the most influential. They are really the most important thing that influences a kid. So as long as you have good friends around you and like motivated friends around you, then you kind of pick it up.
Yeah, I really agree with that.
Yeah.
So then I kind of eventually found my way to A&M for geology. I did some community college for 2 years, took some earth science classes, and then fell in love with like my intro to geology class. And that's really how it happened. I had an intro class at one of our local colleges here, and I thought it was great.
So how many years of community college did you, and then transferred to A&M?
I did 2, and then did 3.5 at A&M to kind of catch up.
Nice.
Yeah, so 5.5 total for my undergrad.
Good. Why not?
Student loans really loved that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, at least you offsetted it because community college is not that as expensive, right? So,
right.
It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. So I just fell in love with like, I don't know, just learning about the planet we live on and how it actually works. I will say at a younger age, I was not very studious, but I did develop a very critical and like, just questioning mindset. I really like to learn how things work and like why now. And in college, I really kind of picked that up more. I think when I found subjects that I was very interested in, I was like, how does that work? And, why? Yeah. Why is this a thing? What is global warming? What is, all of this stuff that impacts us. And I'm fascinated by the concept of time, and a geologic time scale is so different than the time scale that we have in our day-to-day lives, second to second, 24 hours in a day. In that class, I mean, in those subjects, you learn about things that take millions of years to happen. But the things that are happening are extremely impactful for the environment around us. So it's just a really fascinating subject. And, undergrad's kind of like all the general study stuff. And then I went to the geology. They're all kind of like, well, you have to get your master's. If you want a job, you got to go get your master's. So I was fortunate enough to have an undergrad internship with a company based in Alaska, where it was just an online thing where I did QA, QC of data that they were getting for a project, like a hydro dam project. And from there, the dean of the college and my boss was like, oh, just apply to, the school in Alaska. You never know. So I did that. They sent me up there to work for the summer. I found out I got in while I was there over the summer. And I was like, well, this is gorgeous and beautiful. I'll definitely go here. Hadn't experienced it.
Right. I'm like, you were there in the summer. Oh, no.
Oh, and it was so cool because being from Houston, like we don't really get a lot of snow. And I think one of the first weekends I was there in the summer, there was a little bit of snow. And I was like, what is this place? Yeah. But from there, I'm really glad I picked Alaska, though, because they have some really interesting geology and it's just gorgeous. I mean, the terrain is beautiful. It's such a frontier still.
Yeah. I've never been, but I'm dying to go. I would love to
go. Yeah. I tell everybody that they have to go. It is the most magical place.
I bet. So being in Fairbanks, is it like city? It's city-like, right?
Yeah, they have a small town, or it's a small city. I think it's the second most populated city in Alaska. I think Anchorage is the first, and then it's Fairbanks. It's close to, I think a lot of like mining used to come out of there, probably still does. But it's not like so huge. There's the college, and then there's like a small kind of downtown area, and then it kind of sprawls outward from there. So like the airport has 4 gates and 1 terminal.
Okay. So small. So when you were working there in the summertime, were you doing like hands-on work or mostly like the data?
I was a geotech. So the contract they had, this was a hydrology company based in Fairbanks. They had a contract through the state to do some research on the Susitna River, which flowed through like a central mountain range, and they were looking to dam up the river for hydropower. So the company I was working for was just gathering like data on like the stream flow and like how it changes over the season and things like that. Stuff I didn't really know everything I was doing, but I went out on the boats every day to like help install equipment, collect old equipment, kind of just gathered, whatever information they needed, really. I measured a lot of like river heights over time. Yeah, I didn't like do any of like the analysis of it.
Okay.
Because I wasn't a hydrologist, so I didn't really know what I was doing.
Well, it's cool though. I mean, because doing field work sounds like the most fun part of it, really.
It's great.
Like doing the analysis sounds really boring to me. I think just being out in nature and doing whatever measuring you need to do actually sounds that
was my
ideal.
first, like, I was in a helicopter a handful of times, like flying over these beautiful mountain ranges.
Oh, wow.
In boats on these magnificent rivers, didn't see any bears from the ground. I never saw bears from the ground in Alaska. I only saw bears from the helicopters. But I saw plenty of moose, which are also more terrifying to me.
Yeah, they're big and they charge too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. We have bears around here, but they're black bears. So they're cute and kind of small. But they're, I saw a mama and 4 cubs walking across the street, like right where I live.
Yeah, you gotta be careful when you see the cubs. They're defensive.
Exactly. I know. I stayed in my car and there was like a lady walking toward them, like not knowing because she was just like on a walk. And I'm like, don't go that way. Don't go that way. They just passed by. Don't do it.
Oh, gosh, they're so crazy. When I finished school in Alaska, my husband and I, now husband, we took a month to drive down from Fairbanks to Houston. And on our drive, I think through Canada, we saw like 9 bears just on the side of the roads. And there are all of these like cyclists that cycle that Highway 1. And I mean, they have to just see them and pass them, but I don't understand.
I know, it's scary.
Like,
I freak out when I see them. But when I'm in the car, I'm like, okay, I'm safe and I can drive away fast. But yeah, if I were walking or cycling or not in a box of metal, then I would definitely be scared.
I know.
And they're brown bears over there. Yeah. They're brown bears over there, right? Like it's like Kodiak bears and brown bears or something.
Yeah, the grizzlies are huge. Yeah, they're massive. Yeah, I'm totally on a tangent now. But
I know. It's okay. Alaska, this is what this whole podcast is tangents.
Loving geology. And the work that I did, I was basically looking at a full mountain range called the Talkeetna Mountains in South Central Alaska. And I did a lot of work on a program called ArcGIS, which is like a mapping program where I looked at digital elevation models of the mountain range and applied, I'll throw out some terms here that I probably can't describe, applied a lot of geomorphology kind of equations to really look at the topographical features of the mountain in specific points. And I gathered samples from a specific area. And really the goal was to just try and understand if there are parts of this mountain range that are still tectonically active, which means that are there parts of this mountain range that are still faulting or building up, or is like those kind of active processes like dead. And my advisor was interested in me doing this because of that specific dam project that was going through the river that I had been an intern for.
Wow. So
this is Susitna River that was building the dam. And, it's just kind of trying to see, is this dam a good idea or not? But
did you stay long enough to get the results?
Not really. Well, I mean, I did my thesis and defended it and kind of found that based on the research I did, I found that some areas might still be actively faulting. But honestly, now that I go back through my research, I'm like, I probably could have done that differently. I don't know. It's hard to say with like a master's thesis because I think over time you would learn so much more and you'd like, I could have done that a little differently and maybe gotten a different result.
Sure.
So it's hard to say.
Plus it just doesn't seem like that. I mean, maybe it is. Is it? It can't be an exact science. I mean, you're just taking data,
and especially It's not an exact science, especially the way that the kinds of science that I was doing, because it was informed by a lot of like mapping and like mathematical equations
Right.
that you input your own variables basically. So, I mean,
Right.
all that stuff is subject to the person doing the research.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, that probably was way too much.
No, no. See, the thing is, like, I find this very interesting. I know, I don't know. Maybe people are like, okay, get to the art already. But like, okay, like you're speaking about this, and while you're speaking, I'm looking at what's behind you, which to me, it's like I can see like a direct line to how this translated to your art, even if your time in Alaska was not exactly what you were thinking about when you were making the pieces behind you, but I can so just see it. I can see like the natural elements and the flow, and you're studying rivers, and I can see it like all sort of flowing behind you. And I don't know, I find it very beautiful, and I think, and that would be my assumption is that it does inform your work now. You know.
Yeah, I think the past year I've thought a lot about that, and the time that I've spent as a geologist has definitely, I think, informed the way I view color and shape and work with things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all, again, kind of comes back to this fascination with like time, and then like there there are so many natural processes in our world that have like a natural search for equilibrium or creating balance or working through these natural cycles. And I think that mirrors a lot of things that we experience as like human beings in like everyday life.
Right.
And then I think it mirrors kind of the way I work. I mean, I do a lot of kind of symmetrical pieces or pieces that are very, I don't know. It's hard to pull out the exact words, but I do think there's like a relationship between like the work I do, how I live my daily life, and then the studies that have impacted me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the piece behind you, for example, is that the one you titled Mesa? Or am I making that up?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about that? Okay. So process wise, I'm like dumbfounded by your work because I know that you hand dye, but I also don't understand the symmetry that you're achieving with the finished piece. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't have to give away your secrets. It's just, I have to say that and just, maybe we'll leave it at that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's truly like astounding and beautiful, and yeah, I'm perplexed by it and also very amazed. But yeah, can you tell me about?
Yeah, so the Mesa, I think from start to finish was like a 7-month ongoing project, but it was never like, you sit down and work on it completely for 7 months. That literally never happens with anything I try to do. So that started with just some like, I wanted a symmetrical piece. I wanted to kind of try to figure out how I can use that knotting technique to create something symmetrical, because I knew it'd be really challenging. And I kind of was inspired by a lot of like Georgia O'Keeffe is a big inspiration for me. So I kind of started making doodling these kind of wavy, beautiful lines that mirrored each other. And it wasn't until I started knotting them that it reminded me of like a mesa landscape viewed sideways. And so the process started with just sketching, playing with color, wanting to go with these more earth tones. And then when I made it, I'm trying to remember, I think I made just the left side over to the middle. And then I flipped it around and did the other side over to the middle. So I went top to bottom and then bottom to top.
Oh, wow.
To try and achieve that symmetrical look. Because sometimes when I work with my clove hitches just directly across, the whole piece tends to kind of shift in one direction, I guess just from tension as you're knotting. And I haven't really figured out a way to like keep that over in one place. But yeah, so that was
right. So flipping it around. Yeah, I could see how that would work.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting.
Which made it difficult though, because I was trying to also match the colors on either side. So doing it backwards meant that the color placement had to switch. And that was a fun challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it. Like, cause I'm like, well, I know because it's like different if you're just painting it, right? But you're taking already dyed cord and creating this, this result, which is just, it's beyond me. Yeah, I can't really describe it in any other way than to be like, it's a total puzzle, it's like,
yeah. Which I really like puzzles. So.
Right. I was going to say, in a lot of ways, you must have a math brain, which ties into, the work you're doing.
Which is weird because I hate math. So
the irony. Yeah. So how did you get into the hand dyeing? And do you have any advice for people who want to just play around with dye?
Mm-hmm. I got into hand dyeing. I went on every year. My family on my husband's side, we all tried to go to a national park together to do a national park trip. And we went to Yellowstone. I think it was our first year we decided to do this. We went to Yellowstone together. It was like all of us crammed into one SUV with a 2-year-old laying on top of us. It was great.
I'm sure it was. Right.
Yeah. The rides were awesome, but the landscape's beautiful. Yellowstone's such a gorgeous park. Obviously, as a geologist, I love national parks. Huge fan. Everybody should go support your parks. And we went there, and I was falling in love with the like gradient colors in a lot of these geysers. So if you've ever been, they have these gorgeous, especially Grand Prismatics, like the big known one, where these colors grade from like a rusty, rich red to like a bright orange to a teal to like a deep blue.
Oh, nice.
And I saw that and I was like, I want to, and at the time I was doing tons of macrame just in neutral palettes. And I was like, I want to figure out how to like add this to my work. And then when I got back, I did like heavy Google search for like radiant colored cotton string. Does not exist, or at least did not exist
at the time,
point,
right? Yep.
Yeah. And I was just really trying to rack my brain. I tried hand painting the string with acrylics and doing all these other things. And eventually I had a friend who's a family friend who's a quilter. She's like, why don't you just dye it yourself? And then I was like, no, that's way too much work.
I know. So messy.
I was like, that's messy. The amount that I want to dye is just going to be way too much. I don't even know where to start. So I put that off for a really long time. And then at one point I just ordered some Rit dye, just like, okay, maybe I'll try it. Like a few months later I did that. And it was like that December, I ended up getting actually a hernia in my abdomen. And I had to have like, a surgery to have it repaired and everything. So then I was on work leave for like 2 weeks. So when I was on work leave, still in a lot of pain, but very bored, I was like, I'm just going to try this dyeing thing and see how it works out. So I was just like very slowly shuffling in my kitchen, and I had like these little cups of dye out in all rainbow colors. And I just started playing with like little strips of string and dried them. And I was like, wow, this is really great. And it really wasn't that hard. So then I dyed a few more a few days later. So on a time where I probably should have not been moving around that much, I started dyeing string.
You prolong your healing by like 3 weeks because you need to move around.
Yeah. And it was kind of crazy because I got to the end of that 2-week period off work, and I had started, diving into all this color stuff and being like, oh, I can totally do this. I can dye this, grand prismatic color scheme that I want. And I have this distinct memory, my husband does too, of I was in a car with him. We were driving out to the UPS station to pick up a package or something, and I just started crying in the car.
Oh, no.
I was like, I don't want to go back to work. I was like, I don't want to go back. I was like, I just want to make macrame all day. And I was having this really, like, intense feeling of just not being satisfied with my, like, what was my day to day.
Yeah. What was, when was this?
This was December 2018.
Okay. And had you been feeling that for a while and it just sort of came out, or do you feel like you just sort of needed the break for it to settle in and for you to realize?
Yeah, I think the break really helped prompt that intensified it. But I was kind of always finding myself, in a time where I should be working on this one thing, sketching a design, and then somewhere else, or it was just a thing that never left my mind. And I loved the technical geology work that I did. but something about this was just pulling me away.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really stop it. Yeah. So when I had that time off and I was kind of reaching this new kind of developing this new way of working, I don't know. It was just one of those things I was like, I have to figure out a way to change things or provide more time for me to do this or something. Cause and then
I mean, I really believe, I don't know, if you're religious or anything, but for me, those moments are such a like divine spark where, you can't deny the way like the energy is pulling you to one thing as opposed to another. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cause and it gets the ball rolling to figure out what you're going to need to do in order to then, leave your job. And I guess you got lucky in a way because the decision was made for you. But like, so were you, so that was, it took 2 years between the time where you were like, I don't want to go back to when you did get laid off. Were you sort of trying to make a plan for leaving or were you kind of coasting?
No, I was just kind of ramping up, the side work that I did and trying to do more markets and just on my own time, I just made more and more and more.
Yeah. Did you feel unhappy or unsettled or, how were you feeling during that time?
It's hard. I mean, I don't want to say anything like negative about like the company or anything, but like,
because it's not because the company did anything. This is like a total personal journey. And I mean,
I wasn't satisfied for sure. And I definitely wanted to be somewhere else. It's hard but it was one of those things where I have a ton of student debt. Like student loans were the only way I could pay for all 8.5 years of my schooling.
Yeah.
So I have that much amount of student loans that I'm still paying off. And, it becomes such like a responsibility thing of, I don't want to, at the time, it just didn't seem feasible, to be like, I'm not going to make the same paycheck, but we still have to make all these payments.
Right. Right. Of course.
So I never actively tried to sit down and like come up with a plan. I kind of, in my mind, was always just like, maybe 10 years down the road, this will work out.
Yeah.
I have a very internal, like optimist outlook of things. I kind of always feel like things work out. That's probably because when they don't work out, my brain doesn't, store them away as much. But it was difficult and became more and more difficult and more obvious to me that I just wasn't really very happy there doing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was good at it, but it's just one of those things. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you want to do it all the time or in that specific scenario.
Right, of course. Well, so I interrupted you anyway. So you're on your way to the UPS store, and you have a breakdown about not wanting to go back to work.
I have a breakdown, and my husband's just like, "I'm sorry, like I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to tell you." That was really just the time when I realized something wasn't that happy. And then we actually got married the following spring and had a beautiful wedding with all of my macramé. And and then after that, I think the stress just kind of piled on more and more and more after that, because I knew something wasn't right with kind of how my life was, but I tried to figure out like why I felt that way. But I think it's the guilt thing. Like you don't want to go do your thing because your partner can't do that.
Right.
Or other people, can't do that. Or, like, why should I just kind of drop these? You view it as dropping responsibility, I think. So it's like, why should I get the chance to do that when there are other people who probably deserve this more? Or,
Right. Or this person's working so hard for something else.
I know.
And why shouldn't they get what they're wanting to do? Or, yeah.
So, and that's a thing I still struggle with.
Right. But, I mean, I can understand it in terms of your husband, because that's like something you're directly dealing, it's a life you're forming and building together. But, when it comes to other people, I mean, you have to do what's right for you. You know what I mean? So anyway, your job decided for you.
It's
Was
so
your
sick.
macrame business at the time? So you were doing markets and selling online, right? Do you feel like it was consistently growing at the time, like where your time was getting like, taken up more by it, where like, did you feel extra stressed about that, or was the business sort of like you had the side business and it was just sort of staying at the same level, so everything was manageable? Like what kind of?
Yeah, I think it was more like that, where it kind of stayed at the same level because I couldn't really put too much more into it to like actively grow it. Of course, you hope that, oh, I'm going to make this Etsy shop and then everybody's going to buy stuff, but it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it stayed as manageable as I chose to make it. When I signed up for, 7 markets in a handful of months, then it was a little more stressful, but
Right.
that was me doing that to myself. Yeah, and that was the thing, I wanted to do all those things, and I'd kind of forget that I also have a full-time job.
Right. Right. I
I
can't imagine having to create inventory for markets all while working. Because even, I'm trying to think back when I was still working and doing, and had my Etsy shop and was just creating works. I think I only did like 2 markets, and I'm trying to think if I had my job then or if I had already quit. I honestly can't remember. I can't remember if it was at the same time.
Go back and listen to your own interview.
I know. I can't remember if I was doing both. But anyway, at the time for me, I was like, it became one or the other. But this was also earlier. So it was like the industry wasn't so, like even macrame, it was the beginning sort of the resurgence of it or whatever. So even searching online for a piece, it was like people would just immediately find me on Etsy because there weren't so many shops trying to, that I had to compete with. So it was a different world. So I'm curious. So once you did get laid off in, like March 2020, how did you go on? How did you proceed from there? And what is business feeling like right now? And I'm also wondering, like, emotionally and, how did it all go down?
I want to say chaos because
well, yeah, because you didn't feel, I'm sure you didn't feel ready to not have that paycheck.
Yeah, not at all. And it was a huge, I was signed up for unemployment for a while, because I wasn't making any money.
Right.
And, it was a big shock. And, they say when something really traumatic or stressful happens in your life, not to make big decisions, right? Well, I did that, and I dealt with it, I guess, poorly probably. But, I made the choice to do that. And then I just kind of took a few weeks to kind of understand, what is it I want to do with this? Is what I'm doing now sustainable? What are the things I just want to go for? So at that point, I just kind of started to just make what I wanted to make. And I started applying for like shows, and I applied for a virtual Enneagram show. And I made this big golden wall hanging piece. It's about like 3-ish feet by 3 feet in this kind of diamond shape. And it had like a planter in the center. And that was based on my Enneagram number, or my most dominant one, which is a 9, which is the peacemaker. And that got accepted into this Enneagram virtual show. And then I was like, oh, cool. I was like, maybe this can be a thing. And I actually started making stuff that gets into art shows. And then I submitted that piece for the Etsy Design Awards, and then actually won the art category. And that was really cool.
So cool.
Yeah. So it was like these like small, I guess I shouldn't say small, but like, there were these points of like victory, I guess, for myself, that I was like, okay, it was very affirming. I was like, I have something that I can move forward with, and I know people like it. I know I can make this work, and I enjoy doing it.
Right.
It was putting together all the pieces into how to exactly do that. I had no idea what to do. So I actually invested in a coach. So I have a creative business coach. Her name's Donna. And she's wonderful. And she's been helping me put together like like the first 3 months, we did a lot of like mindfulness and mindset work, which prompted, well, I wouldn't say that prompted, but at that time I was having a lot of stress and anxiety and started to develop panic attacks. And when I started speaking with her, it's like all of these like mindfulness exercises we would do would end in me like breaking down in tears. And then, you know, I definitely hit a breaking point where I was like, this is not healthy. And I need to figure out how to deal with this so that I can actually do the things I want to do. And I finally started kind of going to therapy. And then my therapist suggested just trying some medication for maybe a little bit to see if that helps, which I had played around in my mind with doing before, but never actually did it. I had been on some things like that when I was younger, like after my parents' divorce. Like depression and anxiety is not like a new thing for me. It's kind of something I've always had. And it would say I've just been more of like a high functioning person with these attributes. But, you know, you hit a tipping point where it just becomes dangerous.
Yeah. And there are outside factors in life that always influence that point, the tipping point when it happens.
That was the best move.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. You're breaking up. 1 second. 1 second.
Yeah, got on that medication. And...
Hold on.
Oh, did we freeze?
Yeah, you were breaking up. Okay, can you go back like, I don't know, 10 seconds and just repeat?
Yeah. So I saw my therapist. She suggested medication. So I talked to my doctor and we kind of started seeing what would work. And I've been on like Lexapro since last summer. And it's insane to think about where I am mentally now versus where I was mentally a year ago.
Oh, wow.
It's for me, it's night and day, like very much so. You know, I still kind of have this like scatterbrained like atmosphere all the time, but it's so much more manageable, and I'm just not like depressed, and it's great. So if anybody's questioning seeing a therapist or trying some medication, I just do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I hear. I mean, so many people, I mean, even like one of my best friends, it was like when her dad got diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and like she already lives like a super stressed life, and has been going to therapy forever, but hadn't been on medication. I mean, she's literally been in therapy for 15 years, but no medication. So finally they were like, listen, you're going through a lot. This doesn't have to be permanent. Just try it. And she's like, oh my God, total game changer. Like, she's like, you don't have to suffer. You know, it's like, you're still you. You don't have to suffer though with all the, you know, the low lows and the anxiety. And she's just like, it's a completely, it you know, it saves you. It really does, I think.
I mean, for me, it was something I wish I had done a lot sooner. Because I think up to that point, it put a lot of unnecessary stress on, you know, my relationships and just my own like self-esteem and self-worth and everything. Because kind of since I started working with my coach and, you know, doing all of that other kind of self-work, I'm not a person who usually has a ton of confidence in my own abilities, and I require a lot of outside, you know, bolstering to kind of
validation.
Validation.
Yeah. God, that's so crazy. That does not strike me. I don't know why. I always see you as so confident and.
Yeah, I mean, that's so funny because it's so not like how I am. I'm growing into more of that person, and that's what I'm excited about. Is like I've been through a lot of these struggles. And I think doing the whole thing of really trying to make something my own that I want and I really care about, I've had to kind of stand up to these walls I've built myself that to kind of keep me back and keep me small. And internally, that's what your subconscious does. I mean, especially if you're a child of divorce or a child, just somebody who's grew up in, you know, not a super easy environment all the time. That's kind of what you do. You learn to kind of hide. You learn to be quiet. You learn to be the peacemaker.
I was going to say, this is so your Enneagram number. Yeah.
Yeah. You learn to be that person that is there for other people. Yeah. Solves other people's problems and, you know, minimizes your own issues because you don't want to be a burden to somebody else. Right. So through all this work I've done, I've realized it's not a burden to other people because the people around me love me and want to help me and want me to succeed. And I also want me to succeed. So why do I view it that way? Right. So it's been a series of this past year, especially really trying to like figure out those little points and just one by one trying to work on them. And it's a lifelong journey, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, how wonderful that you found a good creative coach who has brought you through. How did you find her? Did you
on Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah. So her Instagram handle's like Hot Culture Creative. She used to run textile tours. And years ago, that's when I started following her because she was doing these textile tours. And then I think before COVID, she started switching to wanting to do coaching. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I have another crazy like universe story with her. This is when I was having my panic attacks and I was driving home. I'm a very anxious driver. I don't like driving in traffic. In Houston, that's an interesting thing. So we have a ton of traffic.
Yeah.
And I was driving home and I started having a panic attack.
Oh God, while driving.
I just started bawling and I was like trying to cross lanes of traffic to exit. And I felt very, just super lost and very like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, there's no way I'm going to make this work. My husband's paying all the bills. I hate that. It's just a lot of guilt. It was just piling on all the guilt. Everything was my fault. All of that. And I get home and I was just like, I need help with something. And I like asked the universe for help. And then she started messaging me on Instagram just about like random questions about like what I was doing as a creative because she was building up her own like market research and stuff. So we just started talking and then I had a call with her and then I was like, yes, help me.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know.
See, sometimes you really do have to say yes, even like when it seems maybe out of the blue or like, you don't know if this person is either going to be trustworthy or whatever. But you obviously had like good vibes with her and look at how good it turned out.
She's helped me so much. Yeah. We've developed I worked on putting together like a business plan and understanding my pricing and, what makes me profitable and what are the things I want to focus on. And, through the process, I realized I wanted to do less of the smaller market size pieces and move more. I'm really trying to move more in like the fine art direction.
Yeah.
Creating like in my mind, I have all these crazy installations and like big, beautiful sculptural pieces. So, this year I'll be working a lot more on moving into more 3D kind of work where I can. And then I started incorporating painting, which I wish I had a piece up, but I sold my first one. So that was exciting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to incorporate, kind of landscape or geological sort of paintings with my fiber work and then find a way to move all that into a 3D space. And
I've seen just maybe 2 pieces of your 3D pieces that you sent me, the images of on the PDF. And I love where you're taking that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. I think it's
really
gonna be
cool.
Yeah,
for sure. And
have you seen the painting one?
I did. The portal. Did I just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I have like a whole like in my mind this whole like exhibition show that's around portals and gateways, and it's like, gazing through these fiber portals to see like moments in time that you want to go back to, or ideal imagery, or an ideal version of you, and it's all in there somewhere.
Oh, it's so cool. I can't wait for you to be able to get that all like realized. And I mean, I know it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of time and, but you'll make it happen. It's super cool. Like really cool idea. I'm trying to, did you post those on Instagram? Did I just miss them? God, I hate Instagram.
Which one? Yeah, I did.
Yeah. The portal piece and the 3D one. You know which one? That one.
Yeah, that's like on this. There. It's probably a little further back.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah.
Because I saw that and I was like, oh my God, like how have I not seen that? Like jaw dropped. You got to repost it.
And that was so crazy. I made it and then I posted a reel about the process, and then immediately from that it got sold. And I was just like,
that's
wow,
I haven't seen it again. Yeah.
I got to make more of these.
Yes. Please do. Oh my gosh. I feel like, we'll have to talk about it, but I might want one. I don't even know if you're taking commissions. Let's talk about it. Are you taking commissions right now?
Yeah, I'm always taking commissions.
Okay.
I'm really trying to find people who want like, the bigger kind of, I don't know. I pretty much take commissions for most things. Yeah.
Okay. So color wise, you're okay with working with colors that are outside your comfort zone and just experimenting?
A lot of the times, I've had a few commissions that have been colors that I wouldn't have picked, and then I've ended up loving them.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's just, I want to work with all of the colors, I want to figure out, just because I gravitate towards this certain palette right now doesn't mean that's what I'm going to gravitate towards next year, or, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And we cannot say goodbye without talking about something big that's about to happen in your life. Something big you're launching. I mean, I didn't want to make it sound like a baby or something. So what would you like to promote?
Okay. Well, I was fortunate enough to be asked by Domestika to create a macramé course. So I did that last December. We recorded a course for a macramé wall planter, which I love to create. And the launch date is pending, but by the time this comes out, the launch date will be secured, and I'm sure I'll be posting it everywhere. So in this course, I kind of walk you through my own design inspirations, how I mock up pieces, how I figure out how to put everything together, the techniques you'll need. And I also go through my dyeing process, which is really cool to see, because I know we didn't actually finish an earlier question about dyeing and everything. But
right. Yes. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, we're back to it now. Dyeing is like really intimidating, and it took me a while to figure it out. But if I had like even this short video process of seeing somebody set up and seeing how they did it, I would have been much less intimidated. So that's in there.
Awesome.
And I show you my gradient dyeing technique and how to just construct your own. So I'm very excited about it, and I hope everybody takes it.
Yeah, we got to get the word out there for sure. Yeah, it sounds very, very helpful, informative. Yeah, I feel like I'm like, oh God, there's still so much I want to do, and I mean, just no time to do it, or kids getting away, or family, whatever. And like, it's like, I'm like, oh, I just want to make a video. Like I still want to make like a YouTube tutorial on how to make a layered macrame, like just something so like obvious which is something like I could do. I mean, my husband's a cinematographer, for God's sakes. And it's just like, even that
I did not know
is hard
That's
to get
so
out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
You should definitely
I know.
do
It's
that.
ridiculous. It is ridiculous, the resources I am not using, but whatever. We'll get there one day. I don't know. We'll see. But what was my point in that? Oh, just, the dyeing part. Like, because I've dyed stuff. Pretty basic though, like usually one color doing like an ombre, which is easy enough to figure out. But I think the gradient technique, and I don't know are you like pre soaking, or what's it called? More.
Yeah. So I pre-wash everything.
Okay.
I know sometimes you buy cotton strings that aren't treated with anything, but I usually always soak and then use a little detergent or something and just kind of swish it back and forth in water for a while. Pre-soaking and dyeing while the string is wet is like really gonna help. Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's
So
a big tip.
if your string's wet, your liquid's hot, it's just gonna help everything adhere more.
Nice.
Yeah. And in the process, like, there's like the gradient dye that you can do or an ombre with just one color. I'll show you in the course using 2 colors and 2 bends, and kind of how I do that. And I do up to like 6 colors.
Wow.
So it's just like a fraction of what I do, but it's definitely there, and I'm excited about it. And it's, my favorite knot, the clove hitch knot.
Yeah.
The wall planters are really awesome. And, the idea is that you take the techniques and what you learn from the course to make your own thing in your own shape and own size and own colors. And yeah.
Very cool. I can't wait for that to come out. That's super cool. Wow. Well, thank you so much. It's been an hour. I feel like I want to ask you more, though. I don't know if you.
I kind of want you to.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to talk about your Enneagram number and your peacemaker. Had you taken the Enneagram before? Oh, so if you guys don't know, the Enneagram is like a personality test. And there are like long test versions and shorter test versions, I think, to get your number. Like, I mean, I think you can actually like take really long ones to get a more thorough thing. But I took the one online sorry, I'm looking for my sheet of paper. From the Enneagram Institute. It's called the Ready Riso Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator. So the thing is, you know what, that I found weird is like I was torn between the way I would answer when I was 18 versus the way I would answer now, because I think a lot of those change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, I got that I'm a type 7, which is the enthusiast, which is someone who's like says yes to everything, like yes to trying everything. And then my wings, like, so the next closest ones were type 3, which is an achiever, and type 9, which is the peacemaker, which is you. But yeah, so I don't know. I was really torn because I'm like, yeah, I feel like I used to be more enthusiastic. Now I'm like a homebody, so I just kind of stay at home. I don't do much.
But it doesn't mean you're not still that in some. I mean, to me, when I read the what is it, the enthusiast? I mean, you're also very enthusiastic about other people.
That's true.
I mean, this whole podcast is kind of like a thing for that. Like you kind of channel
true.
your enthusiasm and like excitement through these other kinds of things. You don't have to just be outside all the time.
That's true. I know. I always like apply it to activities because that's the way I was when I was young. And I was super down for anything anyone wanted to do, maybe to a fault and to my detriment, to my health detriment. But
oh yeah, I'm sure we both been there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So with the peacemaker, are you the middle child? You said you have a sister and a brother. You're not?
I'm actually the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I did the test, I am actually basically 50-50. My dominant ones are 50-50 in Enneagram 9 and Enneagram 2.
Okay.
I think.
Type 2, the helper.
9, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
A 9 is the peacemaker and a 2 is the helper. And I chose a 9. It was literally over by 1 point. And I just wanted to choose one to really dive into because I knew more about the helper side of me. Because that's something that's been very obvious to me over life. But the peacemaker was interesting. So I dove more into that one. And for the piece that I did, I chose to represent the achieving peacemaker, which is like a peacemaker when it's like healthy, like mentally stable and, things going well in life. Because at that time I was like, that's where I want to be. That's what I'd like right now.
It's aspirational.
Yeah. And it was very much like, the peacemaker, like I kind of insinuated earlier, is really all about like just they want to feel unification across like all points between people, between the environment. It's wanting to feel whole, like just with everything around it. And kind of, I guess before you get to that healthy point, you're always the one that's trying to be the person that does that for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and the helper is pretty much what it sounds like.
Right, someone who wants to help everybody, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you ended up picking that, not picking, but focusing on being as the peacemaker for that for the exhibition, for the Enneagram exhibition, was the point to create a piece based on your Enneagram number, or you like submitted a piece based on your Enneagram number?
The point was to create something based on your Enneagram number.
Okay.
And at that time I had already dyed this string and was trying to figure out what to do with it. So when this submission application came around, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of perfect. I mean, the colors that I've created here for me feel how they describe this healthy peacemaker. It was like I called it like a golden hour motif. It was very pretty pinks, goldy yellows, just happy. Just a very bright and happy color palette.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's kind of perfect. And I really gravitated towards these descriptions of unity and like having a connection with the earth and like all of these things. So it's like, I wanted to give it a organic feel. So I was like, well, I'll make it a planter. Like I'll add a planter in the center. And then for the exhibition itself, when I did the photography, I had this pothos in the planter in the center. And I took the ivy, the individual ivy strands of the pothos and kind of I strung them up like around a piece, like it was growing out of it and like binding along it. So gave it this very like organic fluid feel.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. And grounded. It was like very grounded.
Right.
Because of that.
It was beautiful. I love that piece. Have you ever heard your Enneagram song?
There's Enneagram songs.
Okay. There is an artist. I'm looking it up right now. Sleeping at Last. I think it's the band, but it's one guy. I'm pretty sure it's like one guy. And he composed and wrote songs based on Enneagram numbers. And I'm telling you, Demi, when you hear it, you will cry. I cried. I listened to mine and I cried. And I sent it to my friend too. And she listened to hers and she cried. And like, it's such good music. So you have to look it up. If you go to Google, just look up Sleeping at Last or Enneagram song or whatever. And you'll see it. I
can't believe that this is a thing and I didn't know about it.
I know. It's really beautiful. And he's a beautiful artist too and singer and whatever. So yeah, definitely look that up, you guys.
That's awesome. I will.
Yes.
And like, you know how you said when you were answering the questions, it was kind of hard for you. It's like you're supposed to answer them how you are now, but it does change. I mean, the cool thing about the Enneagram is it doesn't expect to stay stagnant. They expect your numbers to change, or at least the balance to change over time.
Right.
So it's cool to take it like every few years, I think.
That's true. It has probably been 2 or 3 years for me. I should retake it and see where I am now, like post-pandemic.
Yeah, go listen to another song and cry.
Exactly. Anyway, oh my gosh, Demi. Well, thank you so much for sharing your whole story with me. This was so awesome getting to know you. I'm super excited for your Domestika course to come out. And of course, I'll be posting about that on Instagram. Hopefully you get a little boost, even though I swear to God, I'm about to quit Instagram. I mean, no, I'm literally about to quit Instagram because I'm not creating reels. And I am literally getting like, I don't know, 80 likes on a photo. Yeah. And I know I just repost other people, but my whole point is so that people will see the work of other people. You know what I mean? So yeah, anyway, there's my
Maybe you should try just doing reels of images of people's
work. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Thank you, creative coach. Anyway, yes, thank you again. You guys can find Demi at, say again?
My Instagram is at Demi Macramé Designs. I think there's periods in between those words.
Mm-hmm. They'll find you. They'll find it.
Yep, they'll find me. And then my website's www.demi.design. And I guess when this is out, my course is out. Check it out. Sign up.
Yep.
Ask me questions.
Yes. You're very DMable. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like talking to people about this stuff. So it's easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for sharing. And I will definitely see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Cindy.
Bye. Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on neromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.